So off the bat, I've been really enjoying Delta Force so far. The game has gotten a lot of things right, and I've been really enjoying what the game is putting down as an overall experience. But the game is also far from perfect, and as I've been playing it, there's certainly been a couple of things that I've picked up on and have gone, ooh, yeah, okay, that needs some work. And that's where our focus is going to be today, guys, on the things that Delta Force and the development team really need to try and take some time to reevaluate and get worked out as soon as possible, in the immediate future even. I didn't want to dive into this too deeply in my original first impressions video because I wanted to take some time getting a lot of experience with the game and, well, simply work out if these things were annoying me because I needed to adjust to the game, or if they were genuine problems with the gameplay flow and the way the game was working. But no, these are genuine problems, some of which are pretty bloody big if they aren't addressed quickly, like could kill the game in some regions entirely. Type big, and that's no exaggeration whatsoever. We're going to start off with the elephant in the room here that's been wrapping the community discussion as of late. Bloody skill-based matchmaking. I'm quite surprised I'm talking about this in the context of Delta Force, but here we are. Now, I've actually got to throw a very big shout out to Enders for this one. I've left his video linked in the description down below, and you should definitely check out his channel. He's got some really solid content cooking for Delta Force, and the dude is an absolute weapon at first-person shooters. Seriously, his gameplay is something that puts me in absolute awe at times, but his latest video and his coverage of the game is how it came to my attention that Delta Force actually has skill-based matchmaking. And now, I will also say that despite my suspicions sort of being confirmed by Enders, I will say that despite that, I began to feel some suspicions for a little while there beforehand, because it was starting to feel like the only possible explanation for me constantly landing in high ping game lobbies, despite the game holding 60,000 concurrent players during my prime time. Like, don't get me wrong, I know Australia has a small-ass population with less gamers than most parts of the world, but the fact that every second game of mine I was sitting in a ping range of 150 to 190 told me that something was wrong. You know, whether it be the matchmaker or the way the servers were routed, something had to be wrong. And well, now we know that the game actually has skill-based matchmaking, and it's been practically confirmed by the developers, which also appears to apply regardless of whether you have the ranked mode enabled or not. Guys, I can't believe I have to say this, especially for a game like Delta Force, but ping should always be fucking king. There's no situation in which players who play semi-decently, or even players who aren't playing semi-decently and just don't have players in their skill bracket in their region, are punished with high ping lobbies for, you know, just playing at their skill level. And in regions where there is a small player pool like Australia, a system that prioritizes skill brackets over ping and quality of connection is one that is going to quickly kill the player base as players keep finding themselves in clunky, non-responsive matches. A lot of us in the Australian community in particular played through the closed alpha period on a high ping environment on the promise that this game would be getting Australian servers on day one. And the fact that we're now running into this after the fact with no means of controlling it is beyond fucking frustrating and, quite frankly, beyond acceptable. The skill-based matchmaking in the unranked mode needs to be removed fucking immediately. It has no place in a large-scale team-based shooter game. The presence of that many players in one game by virtue is going to mean that the skill levels have to mix. That's just how the environment works. There's a ton of argument out there for skill-based matchmaking in things like 6v6 modes, but in modes where you've got 32 players slugging it out against each other, I'm sorry, the argument that you try and build the perfect skill environment for that many people is just ludicrous. You need a wide variety of skill in those games to make the gameplay more emergent with a wider variety of outcomes. If you try to ham-fist skill-based matchmaking into a game like this, it makes the experience feel robotic and takes the variation out of the gameplay. So yeah, that in my books needs to be the priority number one. Forget everything else. Keep it in the ranked mode, sure. I understand that. In ranked mode, there is an expectation there that you're going up against people of your skill bracket, and that there may be longer matchmaking times for your region to achieve that perfect skill balance. But as it's currently operating, the skill-based matchmaking is going to kill the game in a couple of regions hands down. It should not be in the unranked version of the game, especially if it's going to start throwing people in high ping environments. That much is just clear as day. But alright, that is my rant about skill-based matchmaking out of the way here. I'm still so bloody surprised that, and disappointed quite frankly, that we had to go there with Delta Force, but to me, it's now the biggest threat to this game full stop, and it needs to be addressed. Alright, let's move on to the gameplay side of things now, because there are a couple of issues here as well that need to be discussed. And I want to start off with the smoke spam in the game right now, or just maybe even the general utility spam as well. Now look, I am all for a healthy amount of utility in games like this, especially with some of the maps that Delta Force sports. The ample amount of utility is actually what allows you to push objectives in the first place across broad open environments. It's also what lets you get to teammates and revive them, and in of itself creates some very, very emergent gameplay as well. So I will say that the utility to an extent needs to be in the game, and in some scenarios it does feel like a very healthy addition. I will also say that for one, the developers did nerf some of the smoke utility devices very recently, and for two, as players are unlocking more of the operators in the game, there's less people running the operators that do carry smoke, which has helped with the spam a little bit. But even to this day, there are still times where on some of the more close quarters maps in particular, at those critical points we are fighting tooth and nail over the last objective for the sector or that certain choke point, it just feels like I'm spending more time spraying bloody smoke than I do actual targets. You know, seriously, there have been a number of occasions where a lot of my kills just come from me spraying through smoke, waiting for hit markers, and just drilling the poor sod that I happen to get a hit marker on through luck. And when you run into this situation where it is just an endless spam of smoke grenades, especially on, say, the final capture points of Shafted, for example, it just leads to an incredibly stagnant gameplay that stalls the experience. Like, I don't know if this is my old man yelling at clouds moment here in this video, but I don't know, dude. I'd rather not be sitting on choke points where there's just an endless amount of smoke with no real way for a team to just push back and forth on each other, you know? It just feels like the smoke becomes this endless no man's land that if you dare step into, you are dead as a doorknob. Now, as I said, and to be fair to the amount of utility in this game, this is only a problem on some maps, which begs the question, is this more of a map design problem or more of a utility and kit problem with some of the operators in the game? And honestly, I'm not quite sure, because I'm quite a fan of getting both experiences in Delta Force, you know, the broad open maps where you've got to use smoke as cover to get from point A to point B, and when vehicles can shine from time to time, when there's true combined arms warfare. But I also want to see close quarters infantry only maps where the tight-knit action is fast paced, and there's going to be a lot of scenarios where smoke can be abused if it stays in the game in this current way. So no, I'm not quite sure what the solution is here yet. Maybe it's along the lines of adding more and more operators that feature less smoke utility in the game to dilute down the effect of the amount of smokes that are present on the map at any one time. Or maybe it's by readdressing the maps and adding extra flanking opportunities that don't break the flow of the map but also don't make it entirely reliant on who can throw more smokes the furthest. Either or, it's a problem right now, and I'm hoping that it is something that's addressed in the future as time goes on. And the last thing that I think does definitely need to be addressed in this video here, and it's something that we've talked about at great length in the past on the channel, but that is the gunplay and just how bloody beamy it is. And as we said in our previous video, guys, linked in the top right if you're interested in that, this is unfortunately a byproduct of the game's incredibly deep and incredibly addicting customization system. The ways in which you can customize the weapons in this game, and the way in which you can basically eliminate the recoil entirely on most weapons if you have the right build set up, means that with the lack of cone of fire bloom mechanics in this game, you can well and truly beam people out to distances that you just shouldn't be able to with a singular consistent burst. And look, I'm all for rewarding skill in the form of recoil control, but I don't believe this is a healthy way to approach long-range firefights in this game, especially noting that any new player that comes to the game who doesn't have access to these weapon builds out of the gate, you know, by using default weapons, they're going to be completely and totally powerless to these absolute giga-built M4A1s here that basically produce laser beam-like accuracy. You know, I'm even outbeaming sniper rifle players based on the position of their scope clint with an M4A1 out to approximately 100 meters with one singular burst. And that to me is when the gunplay starts to become quite the issue, because again, then you've got an extensive amount of power creep on weapons that simply have no right in being as good as they are at those distances. It also means that you push the average effective engagement range out as well, which also makes the game far more frustrating for people who are actually trying to, you know, push objectives with the amount of open space that is in this game. So yeah, the solution to this, and I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off by saying this because I did so in my last video as well, is to add a cone of fire bloom mechanic. Quite frankly, guys, it's the best balancer to ensure that certain weapons don't go just completely laser beaming people in fractions of a second at ranges in which it shouldn't be. And look, quite frankly, if a cone of fire bloom mechanic that only requires you to lift your finger off of your left mouse button every couple of seconds scares you, then it's a skill issue, respectfully. Look, I do jest there slightly, but cone of fire bloom needs to be added to the game as soon as possible as well. I think it's the best possible solution to balancing out some of these weapons that have got high tier kits on them. And I think it will also add an extra layer to the skill curve of the game that is also pretty damn approachable 9 times out of 10. It's basically going to replicate the likes of Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 gunplay without the obscene amounts of suppression. So yeah, ultimately I feel like that would be a big win-win. Now, those are the big problems that I have with Delta Force at the moment, guys. And look, to be fair, there may be more that I discover the more I play with the game, but at the moment, those are the red line items. Some more than others, but I hope they are all addressed in due time in some way, shape, or form. Noting that Delta Force is still technically in its open beta, there's plenty of time for the developers to iron these kinks out, and I hope they can tackle the challenge head on. But that's going to be it for me today, folks. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to backhand the like button. It does go a long way to supporting the channel, and let me know in the comment section down below what issues you're having with Delta Force, and whether or not you agree with my pain points in the comment section down below. Also, come check out our Twitch channel, link in the description down below, right below Enders' video, which again, I can't recommend you check out his channel enough. Dude has some great content and is definitely worth the watch. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and keep on fragging. Talk to you soon, guys.